Right. So we are live here on Facebook, and I just want to welcome Miss Dr. Shaler. Dr. Shaler is going to be talking to us a bit today about recognizing the red flags in those crazy making relationships. Just to give a little background, Dr. Shaler, Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, is a relationship help doctor. She provides urgent and ongoing care for the partners, exes, adult children, and co-workers of crazy making, relentlessly difficult people she calls hijackals. She helps them save their sanity and stop the crazy making. Even the United States Marines have called on her for her help. Dr. Shaler is a relationship expert, a mediator, a speaker, and author of 16 books. Dr. Shaler consults with clients worldwide through the magic of the internet, and she can be reached on, and I'm going to go ahead and make a little comment here with the URLs where she can be reached: forrelationshiphelp.com and hijackals.com. So welcome, Dr. Shaler.
Thank you, Victoria. It's wonderful to see you again and be here with you.
It's great to have you, and I'm so glad that you were interested in having me interview you on this really popular topic of relationships and the crazy making relationships, and that, you know, relationships can make us crazy sometimes.
Definitely so, and some more than others.
Definitely. Let me just go ahead and type in this URL real quick for relationshiphelp.com. Okay. There's one comment, and then hijackals.com. All right. So, well, let's get started. So things can easily go sideways in a relationship. I mean, pretty fast. And, you know, I've been subject to that. We've all, I'm sure, experienced that. And they can range from annoying to downright crazy making. So when do I know that, you know, it's just, you know, just a typical crazy making situation? It's just one time, or when do I like know that I just need help?
Well, if you have a repeated pattern with one person, then you probably need help. And it's probably the case that you have to look at both of you and see where the problem lies. But if it's only that one person in your life that you're constantly having that same difficulty with, and it's not happening anywhere else, then you may well be with a relentlessly difficult person. It may be your mother, it may be your father, it may be your boss, it may be your friend, it may be your partner or your ex. But it's really important to know the distinction between a person who is just difficult sometimes. That's like you or I.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're all somebody's idea of a difficult person sometimes, or somebody who's relentlessly difficult. Mm-hmm. And usually they just choose one person in the mix of people in their life. So even in a family, a person who's relentlessly difficult will usually target one child. Mm-hmm. And it'll be that child whose life is made miserable, or just a partner at home will have their life made miserable, and yet at work or in the community, they seem like the salt of the earth. And that's a real problem as we talk about hijackals, because if you're being treated one way at home and the face that that person is putting on themselves everywhere else makes it really difficult when you want to go and say, this is what's happening to me. And people say, oh, that could never happen. He or she is so wonderful. You know, I had that happen. I'm an only child. I have a hijackal mother and a passive-aggressive father. And in my life was just hell at home. But I tried to tell somebody, and that's the story I got. So I know.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's no fun when you know, you are having an experience and it's hard to, you know, get somebody else to relate to that experience because they're not seeing that same side of that person, is what it sounds like.
Sure. And hijackals go way out of their way to make sure that that's the case.
Right. Wow. Wow. All right. Well, that's interesting. So you make a distinction between difficult people and chronically difficult people. So what is the difference between a difficult person and somebody who's chronically difficult?
Well, you may have a person who's just picky, they won't eat here and they won't do that and, whatever, and they're difficult. And you talk to them and maybe they have a little edge to the way they talk to you. So you kind of have that thought, oh, don't really want to talk to them. They're difficult. However, a chronically difficult person is a person that I call a hijackal. And I'll tell you what that term means. A hijackal, I trademarked this term, Victoria, because of this reason. My doctorate's in psychology. I was seeing so many people going to the Google goddess and saying, my partner behaves this way. And then they get a diagnosis, a magical diagnosis. Now my partner is a narcissist or a borderline or a psychopath or whatever. They have no possible way to diagnose, but they've decided. When they decide that, then it's all about the partner. Oh, my partner's a this, my partner's a that. And now I'm not thinking about me. Now I'm not thinking about my part in it. I'm not thinking about what do I need to do. And so I wanted a non-clinical term for all those people because all hijackals drink from the same pool of traits. Doesn't matter about those names. So hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control.
Very interesting.
So these are the chronically difficult people because you're always going to be wrong because the hijackal has to win. So whether you're discussing where you want to go for coffee or what you want to do for a lifetime, it doesn't matter. The hijackal has to win. And occasionally they'll let you win, but that's the long con. They let you win. They want something.
Right.
They'll get you later. So
playing their cards right, maybe?
Yeah. So it's very, very important to know this distinction between somebody who just kind of don't like the energy and then a hijackal. Mm-hmm. Because here's what happens, Victoria. People make excuses forever for hijackal behavior, and they never really see the patterns and the traits and the cycles. Mm-hmm. So hijackals love hijackal bait. And hijackal bait are people who want to please them. Oh. They can almost smell them, that there's a people pleaser over there. There's somebody who's been terribly wounded by life. There's a good one, right? And so they target these people. So what will those people do? First of all, a hijack will always love bomb you. So they just have an intuitive knowing about what makes your heart sing. It's like they've known you forever at the deepest level of your soul. You found your soulmate. It's all a game, but that's how you feel. And so that's what we call love bombing. So they get you so involved. And maybe on the first or second date, they say, I know I'm going to marry you. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like clutch and grab as fast as they can because they know they can only keep up the charade for a certain amount of time. Right. So they either want to move in with you, marry you, or get you pregnant. And in the meantime, they may try to borrow money from you. But that's the deal. It's clutch and grab. See if I can get you, own you, have power over you, and then I will slowly or sometimes very quickly start treating you badly.
I have a girlfriend who's getting out of a relationship exactly like this is exactly how she explains it to me, the way you're explaining it to me. So maybe hopefully she'll she'll listen to this and understand that term, know what to look for maybe in the future, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yes. It's really important for people to see this. And I just want to say one more thing about it. If you're a people pleaser or you're happy to make yourself into a pretzel or a doormat, then they can sense all that. And so what you're going to do when they behave badly is, first of all, you're going to beat yourself up. because you're going to say, oh, if only I were more patient or loving or kinder or nurturing or encouraging. It's all my fault that they're behaving that way. And the other thing is that when you have this person, you're going to justify, rationalize, and make excuses for their behavior. Oh, he or she's having a bad day. They're going through a rough patch. They had a bad childhood. They just pull out the litany of excuses for this bad behavior. And then they end up enabling it and condoning it. And so it goes on while slowly you're being more and more and more and more squished.
Oh, that's sad. It's really sad that, that happens, and that it's so hard, I think, for people to recognize that they're allowing that to happen to themselves. And I kind of feel relieved that that doesn't sound like the kind of personality style. I don't have the personality style that would attract that. So thank God.
No, you can be very grateful for that. And if someone's listening and they think, oh yeah, I make a lot of excuses and I justify people's behavior all the time, good thing to look at. Just think about that. Well, why do I do that? Is it because I want them to like me so much more than I care if I like them?
Oh, yes, exactly.
Right? So take a moment and figure that one out. And that will be one step closer to getting away from being in a relationship with a hijackal.
Cool. Very cool. Good information. So listeners can get a free copy of How to Spot a Hijackal at hijackals.com. What are a few of the top ways that you can know if you're with a hijackal or related to a hijackal?
Well, I gave you one already, which is the hijackal must win in all situations. They must. They will come at you 6 ways to Sunday to win. Right? If they can't do it by facts, then they'll do it by emotion. If they can't do it by straight emotion, getting you to buy into their vision, then they'll start making you feel guilty or small or bad or wrong, but they will persist. So must win. So if you have somebody who's that way with you, that's a big wake-up call right there. The second is that, and there are 10 of them, which I have in one of my programs, Victoria, but I'll give you a few. The second one is they have out of proportion emotions. So you bring up taking out the garbage, and they go off like a Roman candle, right? Like, we're just talking about the garbage here. But they are like, oh, you're always, and you never, and you're always on my case. No wonder I don't want to be around you. Nobody wants to be around you. You're such a witch. Like all I'm talking about, could we have a conversation about the garbage? Right? But no, we can't, because hijackals go off and they're out of proportion emotions. So it's the same thing when they find you. They do their out of proportion emotion thing for a short time to woo you and get you and manipulate you and exploit you and seduce you, get you into the program so that they can then start degrading you, belittling you, and treating you poorly. Another one that we don't often think about, but if you have a person in your life who does this, you'll recognize it right away. They do what we call splitting, which is all or nothing or black or white thinking. So you're sitting with your hijackal partner and your partner says, I just think you are the most wonderful human being on the earth. I am so glad you're in my life. And you say, oh, thank you for saying that. I haven't heard that in a while. And they go, there you go. You are always putting me down. You are always finding the dark side of everything. I can't stand you. Okay, we're here and now we're there.
Right. So it also sounds like they do a lot of generalizing as well. You always do this. You never do that.
Oh, yes. They're great at that. And they're great at finding what your triggers are. So if you react poorly to something, they will be sure to stick their finger in that wound. They're looking for the weak spots and they're going to push on them.
Interesting. So what's the first thing that, once you recognize that you're with a hijackal, what is the first thing that a person needs to do?
Great question, which is why I don't like people going to the Google goddess. The first thing you need to do is look in the mirror, and not to find fault, but to find out what's really there. Because you've been being fed a vision of yourself by the hijackal for a long time, right? Especially if you were raised by one. Because if you're raised by one, you are either going to become like them or you're going to become hijackal bait. And then you're going to be in a relationship with one. I've had clients, Victoria, who have married 3 hijackals before they found me. Right? It's a pattern. It's a subconscious pattern. So if you read How to Spot a Hijackal, or this interview rings a bell, then you need to say, okay, what happened to me that makes this all right? At some level, this has been all right with me. And now I see that it is not all right with me. It is not all right for my children to see it. It is not all right in any way for this to be a model of relationship I want to continue. But what was it that allowed me to participate in this and to think it was all right? And you often need some help with that. Because, and I need to say this because it's so important. When you're in a relationship with a hijackal and you get them to agree to go into some kind of therapeutic situation, if they agree, the reason that they agree is to go and manipulate the professional to their point of view, and they will re-wound you 2-on-1.
Wow. That's serious.
That's why they go. And unfortunately, from my client base, they tell me that they've been to 2 or 3 professionals before they found me. And that's exactly what happened. They went in hopeful that someone was going to see the pattern, and the hijackal got to the professional, got them on their side, and then the person was again being ganged up on.
Wow.
So they didn't get any relief at all. And that's because, you know, this is an area of work with relationships that doesn't come across every day. You just don't see it that often in many practices. So you're just trying to be equitable, but they're very charming and convincing. And so you buy it.
Right.
So it's very important when you need help. If any of this makes sense, go to someone like myself who makes this their specialty.
I have kind of a, that created a unique question. So is the hijackal aware that they are doing this manipulative behavior? Like, is this coming from them like on a conscious level or a subconscious level?
Mostly subconscious. You know, after a while, they get good at scheming, but it's mostly coming from their abject fear of ever being wrong. Like, you know, hijackals look so confident and so strong, but they're not. They have feet of sand because they're totally afraid of ever being wrong, which is why they're so vociferous about being right. So they're not, this is just how they know to survive in the world. And yeah, after a while, they get good at it because they practice it so much. And there are that certain few that have a very, very criminal mind. And they will plan things, witness Las Vegas. You know, here's a good example. You take Stephen Paddock, the guy from Las Vegas Massacre. Okay. Hijackal apples don't fall far from hijackal trees. So you hear online that his father was a psychopathic criminal. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to show up. There is already a lot of subconscious learning in there and some DNA factors that could very well lead to him doing what he did without other people being very aware. Because remember what I said earlier, you go and talk about the hijackal that's at your house and everybody tells you, oh no, they're lovely. So he could be lovely in the casino, lovely wherever he went, which he wasn't. Apparently he had a terrible temper and he was kind of rude and dismissive, but it's not unusual to find this pattern in families. So the woman that he lived with, she was overheard being put down by him in public, and she would be submissive and she'd move back and say, okay. The whole pattern's right there.
Right. So the first thing you really need to do is to take a look at yourself and kind of ask, like, how am I being that's allowing this?
Yeah, and not from the point of view of that you could possibly be doing it on purpose. You're not. It's from that point of view of saying, how has this become so familiar to me that I'm not seeing the patterns anymore? In fact, I take them on a one day-by-day incident rather than seeing the cycles and traits and patterns. And when I step back, especially when you get help, and you step back and say, well, golly, this person has done this and this and this and this over time. And now this is the way I describe this person because I've seen these behaviors repeatedly.
Right.
And slowly I've been worn down. I've tried to say no. I've tried to tell the truth. I've tried to have some boundaries, and it hasn't worked. So now I recognize that I participated in that, but it's not a fault. It's a wake up, right?
It's like a blind spot that you're waking up to.
Exactly. Right. So you've been very systematically worn down. You didn't do that. That was done to you, and you accepted it, and slowly you were eroded. Now when you find like, whoa, I still have something of me left and I want to build back up, then you have to acknowledge that, okay, I need to change. My self-concept needs to change, my self-identity, my self-esteem, my self-confidence, because you won't have any left after you've been with a hijackal for many people.
Right.
And another thing, Victoria, that is surprising to me, may not be to everybody, but it was surprising to me how many high-level professionals are in relationship with hijackals.
That, for some reason, it doesn't really surprise me to hear that. Because I do think a lot of times, women in higher powered or higher successful positions, they're, sometimes they're just leaving their self-esteem, being able to separate their self-esteem from the self-confidence and, move into areas of success, but still kind of have the need for approval by somebody in their personal life, I guess,
Well, that's right. And they may look great out there and they may know what to do out there, but they don't know what to do at home. And that's all subconscious training. So they need to have a new skill set. I had one client who was a super successful physician, and she was just treated so poorly at home. And finally, what we did was, she would be at home and he would come in and he'd say, well, why isn't the laundry done? And, this is after a lot of work with her. She looked at him and she said, well, you know me, I couldn't make a decision as to what kind of laundry detergent to buy. Right. And so she just whipped this wind right out of his sails, and he looked at her because that's where he was going to go. You can't do anything right. And she said, well, you know me, I can't make a decision to buy detergent. And so that was the first step that she got out of the entanglement she was in with him and just started to do things differently. And we got somewhere with all that over time.
Cool. So here's what, all right. So is it necessary? This was actually my next natural thinking anyway. So is it necessary or a good idea to leave a hijackal?
Okay. Big, broad question, needs a couple of answers. First of all, if you don't have any children, and you have been wise enough to keep your finances solid for yourself, the answer is, if you value yourself, yes. However, hijackals like to have control. You'll remember that. So they like to take over the family finances. And then when you want to leave, you find that nothing's in your name and they have control of everything and you're being given household money. So there are things you have to do well first to regain your financial status if you can. If there's no physical or sexual abuse occurring, then do your own work, as I said earlier. And part of that work, if you're working with me, is we're going to rebuild your status in the world so that you're not going out on a whim and saying, I just need to get out of here. You have a systematic plan for how you're going to reconstruct a life that will never include another hijackal. But here's where the rub comes, Victoria. If you have children and they're, still at home, then you have to think this one through. When you are in a couple with children, you see most everything that happens, you hear most everything that happens, and you can debrief with a child something that didn't go well or you don't want that child to think. You're there, you heard the hijackal say it to you and to the child, and then you can take care of that. But if you get a divorce, hijackals are really good at court, by the way, so they can get 50% custody, even more sometimes. Unfortunately, I've seen it. Then you're in a situation where at least 50% of the time, you're not going to know what went on. And you are going to take that risk. So you have to be able to balance that. Can I learn to manage myself and the hijackal for the sake of the children and their well-being in the home? Or is this hijackal so outrageous that the only way there is well-being for the children is to take them out of the home? So you can see it's not a simple answer.
Right. So you would really be staying with them just for the sake of having the ability to show your children what is going on here, and just to be that channel between you or between your children and that hijackal.
Yes, you're going to keep your children as safe as you can by being there. But it's a high price to pay, and you need to be in really good shape yourself in order to do that. So it's a big question, and each person has to answer that for themselves. And don't think for 1 minute that we're talking about men hijackals and women having a problem. It cuts both ways equally.
That makes sense. Yeah. And it's funny because in my head, I'm thinking of the man as the hijackal. I guess that's just a natural sense, just being a woman. But yeah, I'm sure that it goes both ways. Would you say that is there a higher percentage of one gender or another that's 50-50?
No, it's just that female hijackals tend to have slightly different traits, more of different traits, and the male hijackals have more of other traits. But they're equal, and they're equally nasty and equally manipulative. And so, I've worked with many men who have, had their children ripped from them and all their money, and they're barely able to do anything. Just as equally, I've worked with women in the same situation.
Right. Well, definitely if you're staying with that person for the sake of the children, then I'm sure you need a lot of coaching and guidance to help you navigate that situation.
Yes. And don't count on your family or friends. Remember, the hijackal got to them. And remember, they may not be as confidential as you hope they are. And that if they're your close friends, they may be like you, and they may want the hijackal to like them. Now you've got a big problem. So that's why you need a professional. Right.
All right. So what is it that makes you attractive to a hijackal? Why would a hijackal be, attracted to a person?
Well, first of all, it's obvious. They really like trophies. So if you happen to be beautiful or, whatever it is they're looking for, that's going to be a number one criteria. The second, and almost as close second, is that you're malleable, that they can be bad to you and you will take it as your fault. You will allow them to behave badly. Maybe you like bad boys, or you like fast girls, or whatever the opposite is. And so that's attractive. And then they want somebody who will make excuses for them and will take the guff that they hand out. And if you've been raised by a hijackal, you will be hijackal bait. You will take it. I walked right into my first marriage with a hijackal, because it's all I'd known. And it was just the natural thing to do. And I thought, and every one of my clients thought that person was not a hijackal because of the show. You see, when you're raised by one, you've always seen that. So you don't know that there's a contrast. So when you see a hijackal out there, you're attracted to the difference, but you don't know they're putting on a show. So then that's problematic, because then once you get into it, you feel just the way you did, used and abused and misused at home. And now you've attracted someone who's going to do that. The other thing is that they like a challenge. So if you look like somebody that they could wear down, their wiles, and you're a real challenge to them, they'll gravitate towards you.
Right. Interesting. And so if you realize that you're in this situation, how can you stop this pattern of interaction? What does it take?
Oh, it takes a lot. Because first, if you do it systematically, if we're doing it together, first of all, you just work on yourself. You will even come to see me with the hijackal. And here's how that goes down. I only work in packages. So you come to work with me, and the package is purchased, and the hijackal decides that they don't like me anymore, which often happens because I call them on their stuff. Then the partner of the hijackal has a paid for package of sessions. So come to work with me, whether it's alone or with your partner. And then we begin I still do individual work in every package. So it's not, even if you come with your partner, you're going to do individual work in it. And then when you have got your head turned around and faced in the right direction, then we start making decisions about what you're going to do. But in that turning around and getting in the right direction, you have to know who you are, what you value, what your real vision for your life is, what your beliefs about yourself and the world and money and family and everything are, and then what are your goals. And as you develop those things about yourself personally, then you can develop some skills for setting boundaries, for telling the truth in a way that's both kind and honest at the same time, because that's absolutely important. I had a woman say to me the other day, well, I've just gotten to the place where I give as good as I get. And I said, well, how's that working for you? Because all it is one argument after the other. And I said, so do you want to be like him? And she said, no, I just want him to have a taste of his own medicine. I said, well, you can't give it to him that way if that's not who you are. So if you're becoming a hijackal, you'll behave like that. But if you don't want to become a hijackal, you better not behave like that.
That's a good question. That just made me wonder, like, can a hijackal kind of turn somebody else into a hijackal? I mean, obviously you have to give your permission to change yourself, but does that happen?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But what you do is like that woman wanted to do. She wanted to mimic the behaviors of the hijackal so the hijackal could see how it looked or felt or whatever. But remember, a hijackal has no empathy. They don't care what you think. They don't care what you feel. They will not get into your feelings with you, except to use and abuse you. So when you try to have a conversation with them and you try to explain, well, when that happens, I feel this way. They go, I should care about that. No, I don't. I don't care. So you have to come to some gripping realities about the fact that you want them to care, and you've been trying to get them to care, and they don't care. Hijackals don't have love to give you. Hijackals have uses for you. And they always have supply waiting in the wings, whether it's actively having affairs or it's got people who are prospects that they're going to be their go-to person. They always have supply waiting in the wings. And they will threaten you with it. Well, I'm going to walk out of here. There are 10 women that I know who want me.
Right. I have Another question. Can Can a hijackal change?
No.
They can't.
There are people who have some hijackal behaviors, and that's the
Mhm.
distinction I was just making. They're not hijackals, but they have learned hijackal behaviors.
Okay.
They can change the behaviors, but hijackals are created. They're created both with DNA markers and by the trauma in their home environments that cause this to exacerbate. And so, no, they can't. They'll give the impression of changing.
Right.
You know, that one of the things that they can do, many hijackals, particularly what I call covert hijackals, they can cry on demand. They're victim hijackals. And so you like, oh, I made you cry. How awful. But often there's no tears. It's just a show. In the same way that they mimic empathy to get what they want, they will mimic behaviors that will make you soften or feel guilty or whatever. But they will not change.
And they've been this way maybe their whole life. I mean, it's just been in development since they were born or you know, abused as kids or whatever.
Yeah, there's two things. There are things that have happened in their brain chemistry and in their brain structure. And there are these markers for it. And then they would have been in a home that set them up for this.
Wow.
So there are things going on. And I've also had clients where they were perfectly fine, delightful and lovely people. In fact, the stories about my own mother are that she was that way. But when I was 2 years old, she had what they called at the time a complete nervous breakdown, and they gave her electroshock therapy. And in doing that, they damaged her brain, and she came out a full-blown borderline personality disorder.
Oh, wow.
And I've also had a client who they did everything right, this couple. They fell in love. They went to the Gottman Institute. They took all the courses. They got engaged. They got married. They had a baby. And she had a traumatic birth experience and just bam, like that, full-blown borderline personality. And so mostly it's nature and nurture together, but sometimes it's a traumatic event.
That's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
And scary that, you know, I mean, that there's a lot of people walking around that have this, you know, to think that they could never change.
Well, they don't want to change, Victoria. They believe they're perfect. They have to believe that because they have these huge insecurities. So they have to believe they're perfect. And so, no, why would they want to change? They're the right one. So they have no motivation to change. Right.
So what would you say are the next the best next steps that a person who's listening right now, who's just realized hijackal patterns in their relationship and they want to stop that crazy making? What do you suggest?
Well, first of all, download the ebook and make sure that that's what we're talking about in your life. Okay. So how to spot a hijackal at hijackals.com. Then go and experience some other things. Go to my website for relationship help, have a look at the blogs, read a few things. Then go to my YouTube channel for relationship help. Listen to some of the videos there. And then when you're absolutely sure, like this is what I'm dealing with, I'm pretty sure, then come and see me and we'll talk about it, or get some help from somebody, not a friend. Get some help from someone who can actually help you change the patterns and make a difference in your life.
Very good. Very good. So that's how listeners can learn more about you and your work is by, and I did put the, you know what, I'm going to just show this here. So for relationshiphelp.com. And then there's also, did I not? Thought, oh, you know what? I never actually pushed the button on that other comment for the, let's see, where'd it go? There it is. Okay. So, and then here's the other website here is hijackals.com is the other website. And the name of the book again is called
How to Spot a Hijackal.
How to Spot a Hijackal.
And after you download that book, a screen immediately comes, or you request to download this book, a screen comes up, and you can purchase my book, Escaping the Hijackal Trap, immediately for download there. It's only $7, but it will be worth much, much, much time spent talking to a professional.
Definitely.
So you want to have a look at that. If you've decided it is hijackal behavior, then move right on to Escaping the Hijackal Trap, so that you're immediately opening your mind to other possibilities.
Definitely. So, well, I highly recommend, if you are dealing with this hijackal behavior pattern in your life at all, you know, Dr. Shaler is a professional. She's been doing this work for, like, what did you say, 33 years?
Yeah.
You know, she's written 16 books. I personally have had, you know, conversations with Dr. Shaler that have really opened my eyes and, you know, shed some light. I mean, this has all been very enlightening information. So I would highly encourage anyone who's dealing with this to go to Dr. Shaler's 2 websites that I mentioned that are here in the comments and download the free ebook. You have nothing to lose, to get some more information, just get informed on how to help yourself. And Dr. Shaler, it's been a privilege and an honor to get to talk with you again today. Do you have anything else that you want to leave our audience?
I think the most important thing that I can leave your audience with is, if you've heard this, you now know you're not alone. And you've been culled from the herd, made to feel separate and apart, and we need you back.
Yes, we do. And that's a very important message, that you're not alone. Obviously, many, many people out there are dealing with this. And, you know, I've known people myself that, you know, we've had conversations on the phone that are dealing with similar situations. So definitely, you know, do yourself a favor and find out more for yourself on how to help yourself overcome this. And Dr. Shaler is wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I'll look forward to telling all my people about the great interview we had. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.